Good afternoon. Okay. New York City is a city of contrasts, and just 7 miles from affluent Manhattan is the neighborhood of Brownsville in central Brooklyn. And Brownsville has a tremendous amount of potential, but it is blighted by some of the worst public schools in the city. Just 19% of students in grades 3 through 8 are found proficient in English and math each year. And among adults 25 years and older, 1 in 4 lack a high school diploma. And only 1 in 5 have a college degree. This at a time when college is really a ticket to a middle-class life. Also, Brownsville has the 2nd highest incarceration rate in the city. On some city blocks, more than $1 million a year is spent to incarcerate the residents of that block alone. This is the school-to-prison pipeline. Tinkering with our existing public schools, as we have done over the last several decades, I submit will not break the school-to-prison pipeline. If we're serious about disrupting it, we need to have not just incrementally better schools, but radically better schools. And that's why I started a network of charter schools in the city called Ascend Learning. Today we have 12 schools in central Brooklyn, of which 5 are in Brownsville, and we enroll about 5,000 students. The goal was to create a reliable path to and through college for the neighborhood's residents and offer an ambitious liberal arts education in a warm and joyful setting. And these would be schools that would be open to all students. No tuition, no fees, no selection of kids in any way, and no deselection, importantly, of any children along the way. So we, unlike many other networks, when a child leaves because of whatever circumstances, family instability, mobility, we fill the seat just the way a public school does all the way up through the 9th grade. That's what it means in our view to be a true public school. Thank you. I think that's incredibly important. And so here is our largest campus, which is a former 1920s movie palace on Pitkin Avenue in the heart of Brownsville, where we have a lower school, a middle school, and a high school. When we began this project, we thought of ourselves as following a model which had emerged in urban schooling circa 2000 called No Excuses. Now that term is very often misunderstood, and for good reasons. It conveys all kinds of horrible things. But in truth, it's quite different from what it sounds. It arose in reaction to the fact that in so many urban schools, children were met with low expectations, disorder, even violence. Learning was extremely difficult. So the first No Excuses schools offered something in very stark contrast to it: order, high expectations, drive for academic results. But most importantly, and I think most interestingly, there was an enabling idea, which is a pretty thrilling one, which was that within these 4 walls of this building, we can do what it takes. We're not going to blame, hence the No Excuses term, we're not going to blame, as important as they are, all of those other circumstances. Not enough money for schools, social problems and family dysfunction and everything that makes this work difficult. Instead, we would say, we can educate all of these students here, we have the means and we're going to do it. That's a remarkable proposition. And so we began along this path. But what we found after a few years was that while we were posting high results, just the way the first No Excuses schools had done, KIPP is the most well-known, the Knowledge is Power program, and the approach has been widely emulated across cities around the country. We too had strong results academically, but we found that the model worked for some, but not for all, especially for boys. And we also saw very high rates of student suspension, which we thought were intolerable. So students being taken out of the classroom, often for substantial periods. And most importantly of all, we asked, where was the joy? Where was the intellectual curiosity? Yeah, you're supposed to laugh at this one. But it's very sad, right? Where is the curiosity? Where is the joy in the learning? And we didn't see it. And so we decided that we needed to make a fundamental change. We would depart from No Excuses entirely, because we were asking ourselves, how can we join a model that is supposed to, a liberal arts model that is supposed to promote critical thinking and independence of thought, with a model of rigid rule following and silent meals and silent lines? It was an intolerable contradiction. So we decided to do away with any echo of the criminal justice system in our schools. No more merits and demerits, no more silent lines. It would not be based on punishment. It would be based on building agency, that sense that students are in control of their lives and can act on their own free choices. You know, Princeton sociologist Joanne Golan, who's written extensively about No Excuses schools, I thought said something very striking. She said, in these schools, although the intention is genuine to create mobility, the schools inadvertently reinforce class-based habits, deference to authority, silencing oneself, instead of the traits and attributes that middle-class schools promote, which are creativity and independence of thought and autonomy. And we decided that that's what we had to do as well. And so what we have now achieved is that the culture is transformed. The tone of the building is completely different. Now the joy comes from the learning itself. And I should say that we've coupled it with a really ambitious curriculum where, for example, all students study Shakespeare, The Tempest in the 5th grade, and every year thereafter, learning algebra in the 8th grade, because it's all possible if you begin with those expectations. So that's a quick look at how we got to this point. And so now let's ask about the results. So here's a graph of some of the results over time. I don't know why it says value over there, that's puzzling, but you got the idea. So what happened is back in 2015, we had what you would expect, which is that our African American and Hispanic students, which are nearly all of our students, were found to be proficient at dramatically lower levels than in among white students statewide. So this, of course, is the achievement gap. And then over time, our students have overtaken. First, they in 2017 truly closed the gap as measured by the Common Core assessments, which are, despite all the political ruckus, very good tests. They're very good emulations of the actual intellectual performances that matter. And then by 2018, it actually overtaken their peers, and that spread continues to grow, which is absolutely thrilling. And in math, the same thing. Starting in 2015, the gap was even greater, but over time, in this short period of 3 years, they have overtaken and more. Now, that's not the only measure of success, of course. One thing that's interesting to look at is suspensions. So without reducing expectations of behavior, if you will, we have dramatically reduced our reliance on suspensions by 40% in the lower schools and about 1/3 in the middle schools. And in addition to that, I would bring attention to what it's like to work here, right? It's far more fun to teach in this kind of environment when you have an exciting inquiry-based, progressive education as opposed to a didactic, direct instruction model, and of course the enormous difference in culture. And we see this difference in the rate of retention of our faculty, which has gone way up. So now let's jump briefly into an actual classroom of 5th grade and see the teacher and the students in action.
I have this 8 and I want to make 3 groups of it. How much do I have now? Michaela?
24.
I have 24, split it in half. Trey, what I got?
12.
12. Yeah. Nice work. I4, get ready. The last period that I teach for the last 2 blocks. But once that bell rings, they're coming as fast as they can. Some of them have to go back because they're running and they have to walk. And so it's like seeing that every day, it excites me, and we just get in and we start learning. Boom, everyone's in their seats. Everything is away, just one pencil is out. It's just moving like a well-oiled machine. So, what was the trick to remember where the y-axis is? Olivia?
Because when you know that a Y shoots up and
Yeah, the letter Y shoots all the way up. And that's why we know the one that's shooting up or the one that is vertical is the what axis, Nia? Beautiful, girlfriend. That's the y-axis. I taught 2 years with another network where we worked under this idea of students complying to everything that you said. And so I think teaching like that for 2 years really restricted who I was as a person. Coming into this and understanding that like now the classroom management is about relationships. And I was like, oh, I can do this. So I felt like that freed me as an educator. List them out and then find the volume. Beautiful work. Super organized. Keep it up, Sarai. I keep a log, and my log was to find one thing that I can relate to my students with. And so with everyone it was different. For Katrina, who likes anime, so it was about speaking about One Punch Man and Naruto and things that I grew up with, which now have cycled back in so I can use it. And so I think it was finding those moments and those pieces of them that I could relate to that helped build this culture. There was a moment in December when it finally clicked, and from then on it was just like, we're good to go.
At first I did think he was a little bit too strict, but as soon as I started to get to know him better, he became more fun.
Our relationship definitely deepens as we dig deeper into the content.
At first, we always do the X coordinate because in the alphabet, X always comes first. So what it would be is that we have to move 4 spaces to the right and 7 spaces upward.
Nice. Who can push Isaiah's thinking? But he didn't tell me where I'm starting from. Who can push his thinking? Janila?
The origin, which is your starting
So Isaiah, how could you remake your statement? I have these 2 numbers here, 4, 7. What is that called? What is that called, Yosef?
That is our coordinate.
Hey, show your friends some love. Coordinate. Coordinate. Say it again.
Coordinate.
Go ahead and keep that. Bring it back. 2, 1, 0.
So I think that he qualifies for more than math, and he could do more things like English and history and stuff, because I think that he has the character to do all those things. When we were doing the Tempest, he would do all the effects and everything, like the lightning came, flash, boom, bam. He would take it as we were doing a play, and he would make it so dramatic and funny.
Mom, Mr. Uden. Mom, Mr. Uden. I always call him Little Uden, and I can see my son being a Mr. Uden one day. Because, you know, his motivation with the kids, and not only my child, with all the children, I respect him 100% for that. 100%.
I used to get. You're doing a wonderful job. What do you mean?
So as we saw, that's about how adults talk to students. It's about the relationships they form. It's not about manipulating students as in the past. It's not about, you know, putting the marbles in the cookie jar, and when there are enough marbles there, then you get a treat or award at the pizza party. It's about the motivation in the content itself. When we started our first high school a few years ago, we had just 1 suspension all year long. And the students went on to score among the highest in the state on the Regents exams that year, which was, thank you, which was absolutely wonderful. So it's just the beginning. You know, we have so far to go. Our results are not yet what we want. Our students are not yet in college, although next year they will be, let alone through college. But I think we're asking an important question. Can students who are provided an ambitious, rich, liberal education coupled with a warm and joyful culture thrive just the same way students from suburban communities do? Thank you very much.